All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Board of Education for the Appleton Area School District. My name is Kay Eggert. I'm serving as board president. First roll call of fellow board members. Peng Tao.
Here.
Nick Ross.
Here.
Jason Kolpak.
Here.
Sauter.
Here.
Ed Ruffalo.
Here.
And James Bacon. Oh, James is joining us virtually. He will be on momentarily. Okay, so we'll just go on though. Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, for anyone who may end up or may join us virtually, the materials, just a reminder that all the materials in the agenda for tonight's meeting are on board docs, which can be linked to through the district website. So I'm going to now ask if any board members have a request to remove any of the consent agenda items for tonight for separate consideration. Okay, seeing none, then I'll ask for approval of tonight's agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, any questions about it? Okay, seeing none, then all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Next, at this point, if there is an opportunity for public input, the board has several ways to hear from our community and from our stakeholders. And speaking at board meetings is one of those ways. We do have, at this point, 3 people signed up to speak. I think everyone who is speaking has spoken in the past. I go through these guidelines, which are based on our board policy. And so just bear with me. I'll abbreviate just as a reminder that individuals may speak for up to 3 minutes. We will have a timer going so that you can keep track of your time. We do have to stick to that allotted time. Any comments that would exceed that time frame can be submitted in writing to the board. The board respectfully requests that speakers refrain from presenting comments that introduce specific comments or complaints or concerns about individual staff members or individual students. Those items should be taken up through the district complaint procedure, and any questions you can direct them to the office of the superintendent. And also, just as a reminder, a speaker retains all liability for his or her comments and conduct. So we just respect that the speaker refrains from anything that is disorderly, threatening, or defamatory. And also the Wisconsin Open Meetings Law allows only brief discussion of topics that are not listed on the agenda. Therefore, we may not be able to fully address comments that are shared tonight. So with that, our first speaker, Mary Hufford. And just a reminder, there's a microphone there. If you can turn it on so it turns green, and just state your name and if you are what community you reside in.
Okay, Mary Hufford and Grand Chute. Okay, I'm back. I want to speak tonight about the monitoring report that's included in tonight's agenda. And I made some observations about it. I made a mistake and looked at the board doc before I took my nap this afternoon and went, I've got to say something tonight. So it disturbed my nap. But first, the document is a fancy feel-good list of goals. This may sound harsh, but I'm just being very honest. But most of these goals are not easily or even able to be monitored. You monitor blood pressure with an instrument, you monitor temperature with a thermometer of some type. Most of the categories have nothing to do that can be objectively measured. If this is the case, what's the point of this report? The goals need to be reviewed and in line with reality. Reading and math scores could be monitored, but there's no stated way it will be done. Such things as truancy and assaults in school could be counted, but there's nothing mentioned of that problem, which we know is complex. It would be a whole lot of help if parents of grade school and junior high school knew how the grading system worked for them. Progress has been made at the high school level, I think. Progress would be choosing the University of Florida's reading program. The others seem to be distracted from the phonics method. Another step of progress would be a truly improved method of teaching math. According to the Post-Crescent, none of the math teachers thought the current program was working. What could be scarier than that? That should have provoked a meaningful response. But even beyond that, can anyone explain why a college graduate is turned down for tutoring math because we don't have time to set up a program? That happened 2 weeks ago. It brings up the question of, do you want to solve the problem or just make nice reports? For a time when the district was talking about the failure rates of reading and math, I had some hope that maybe there was a desire to improve, but that hope is fading. As a board, please devote yourselves to improving student lives. Do research on your own, read books related to education with more than one source and era. As I said it the first time I spoke, don't be rubber stamps. Ask for a report that gives real measurable results of the things that matter most. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, the next speaker is Coriotis.
Thank you. My name is Corey Otis. I'm the president of the Appleton Education Association. I am an ELA teacher at Appleton East High School, about to begin, actually officially today, began my 24th year in the district, and I'm also a graduate of Appleton East. I want to thank you for your service. I can't say enough. You donate countless hours, put in a lot of effort. The community appreciates you. The staff appreciates you. You are not compensated for all the time, all the work that you put in, but we are very grateful for what you put forward. I also want to thank you for your patience through the process of bargaining. It's been unorthodox, uncommon, to say the least. We got off to a late start because we were waiting on the budget in Madison, and we trusted the process. We talked, we went back and forth. There were some tense moments, but ultimately we came up with an agreement that I believe, and the staff believes, is a win-win, not only for the district, but also for the staff. Teacher retention and attraction is a very complex problem. It is not one that only Appleton faces. It's one that we face nationwide. This is also a complex district. We have lots of challenges because of our size, because of our population, and the staff, whether it's an educator, paraprofessional, secretary, or anybody else who works for the district, works really hard to make sure that this is the best place in the Fox Valley and the state for kids to come and learn. I want to thank the administration. I want to thank Mr. Hartjes. I want to thank Julie King, Holly Burr, and Dave Pittenberg specifically for meeting with us countless times over the summer. Actually, it was 5. Somebody told me the number today. Appleton, I've lived here my whole life. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to learn. I think the decision tonight, again, is a win-win. It goes a long way with the staff, but it also reminds people that Appleton is a destination district. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Tracy Keel is also signed up.
Okay, I was going to email tonight, but thought it was important to come and do this in person. So I'll try and keep it short because after our first day back, I'm on overload of information right now. So I just want to merely speak tonight to say thank you to everybody, including everybody who was involved in the process. When the conversations began for professional educator compensation, I don't think anybody knew where anything was really going to go or what to expect. clearly it's a difficult time for everybody right now. We're all facing very difficult challenges and financial choices to make. I don't think that magic money tree or pot of gold has been found yet, at least not to my knowledge. So this was not going to be any exception. This is going to be difficult. But I'm thankful that this was not a process that was jammed through, pushed through, rushed through with little thought or discussion. Instead, this was a process that was ensured to have questions asked, input given, feedback was allowed. We've always been very fortunate here in Appleton to have a board that not only supported the students and ensured that our students had the best for them, but also supported the staff. So I just wanted to thank everybody tonight for all the work that you guys did. I know it's not a compensated position. There's a lot of time and effort that went into this. Also thankful for everybody else that was involved, and especially Corey, you know, for speaking on behalf of us. I know there were a lot of people at the table for this, so I just publicly wanted to say thank you for everything. So thank you.
All right, thank you. So any other individuals wishing to address the board? Okay, then I will close public input. And we are going to follow our agenda, and we are going to go to 5B, which will be school and student services update. And this is the monitoring report, R1, Dr. Harrison.
All right, good evening, everyone. Tonight, as part of board business, you'll be approving the monitoring report for R1 mega result. And Kayla is going to call up a visual to just kind of remind us of where this fits into the scheme of things, knowing that there are actually about 11 different results policies totaling that we look at cumulatively. So here you can see in the visual that shows this past year of progress monitoring. That last fall, we looked at R211, which looks at our English language arts results, and then worked throughout the year into the different content areas. So we looked at mathematics, science, civics and social studies, health and human performance, fine arts, world languages, career and technical education, and financial literacy. Now, you may recall that we spent some time together looking at roughly half of our OEs and the recommendations for updating those for the upcoming cycle. We still need to finish that process, but then part of our overall process will be to also look at our policies, our results policies, to talk through as far as what recommendations of change would we want to see within each of those policies. This is the final culminating monitor report based on, again, those other results policies that are, again, as mentioned before, very comprehensive and detailed within each of those different content areas. When we collectively drafted this report about a year ago last spring, we talked about really the why behind why we're in the business of education, right? When we talk about what is it that serves as our purpose here in the Appleton Area School District. And so you can see at the very top of the visual where it says students will graduate academically, socially, and emotionally prepared for success in their personal lives, careers, and continuing education, and committed to lead, care for, and contribute to their communities. So this mega result policy essentially takes an overview look at all the different results policies that we've engaged with over the past year. And so with that, I'm just going to dive right in here as Kayla calls up the actual monitor report. Again, this is the final results policy. So this is that last overall policy report in which we, again, will be saying we're in baseline year. So I know that seems kind of weird to say at the start of the 23-24 school year, but remember, this is reflecting back on the year before. And so what this policy again will do is look at where we are with respect to all the policies collectively. So as you scroll further down here, if you wouldn't mind, Kayla, scrolling all the way until we get to page 8 of the report, there are 4 overall indicators for the mega result policy. And so here you can see indicator 1 says that we will make reasonable progress in all the different content areas that make up the overall mega result. So as you recall, we've looked at ELA, mathematics, all the way through financial literacy over the past year. And all of those reports were presented to you in the baseline year, knowing that it was also the first year of our new superintendent. So a year from now, or less than a year from now, actually, when I come back to you with the monitor mega result policy, that will look different in terms of not saying baseline year, but for each of those policies, as we take them one at a time in the upcoming year, will either indicate that we've been making reasonable with noted exceptions, or not making reasonable progress. So that's why you're seeing each of those 9 policies that you've already reviewed with me previously as being indicated to be within the baseline year. Now, the second indicator says that we will make reasonable progress on result 3, which is the essential life skills policy. So you may recall that Kristen Comerford and I co-presented that result policy to you in its monitor report. And these are the different domains that make up the essential life skills policy. So you can see cognitive development all the way through career development. And each of those domains within R3, again, were presented to you this past year as a baseline report. But again, a year from now, as we present out R3, that will no longer be baseline, and there we will be measuring whether or not we made reasonable progress. The third of 4 indicators then is our graduation rate for Appleton Area School District students. And again, a year ago, just over a year ago, when we wrote this policy, we indicated that the first year would be baseline. And then from there, we would want to see an improvement incrementally for each year moving forward. At the time, as a board, you indicated that you would like to see what that percentage looks like for all students graduating within 4 years, students with disabilities, and then also our Black students, knowing that we have seen large discrepancies in graduation rates. I color coded this for you just to match what the goal is, but I do want to stress this is uncertified data. And what I mean by that is it doesn't become official in the WiseDash portal, which is the overall repository of data state level that districts use, the Department of Public Instruction uses. That won't be certified until later this fall. So please note that the numbers would only go up from what's presented here, because these numbers do not reflect any of the work that's happened over the summer with summer school credit recovery, as well as additional credit recovery options that take place after June 5th, after the conclusion of the end of the school year. So knowing that this is still preliminary, if we were to stoplight the report today, you can see what our baseline percentage was for students graduating at 86.9. Pre-certified is 86.2. So we'd be shy of that incremental increase of 1%. But again, not yet certified, does not yet include students who did graduate during the summer. Same holds true for our Black students, where we were shy of the goal set there, but again, not yet certified. And then our students with disability, we have an uncertified value of 64.3. So again, certainly any student who holds an IEP, who did earn credit during the summer, who is shy of credits for graduating in the spring, but did earn those during the summer, will be reflected in that final count. And again, that usually takes place around September or October with the Department of Public Instruction. And then as we move on to the other part of indicator 3, we had a very lengthy conversation about a year ago as far as recognizing that not all students necessarily will graduate within 4 years if they have an IEP, individualized education plan. And so at that time as a board, and many of you being members of the board at that time and being part of that conversation, we talked about having then looking overall at the 7-year rate, knowing that districts who do have students with IEPs may be educating students up to 7 years. And so what you're seeing here is what the results look like for that particular goal, where we indicated percent of students by graduating year cohort who would complete an Appleton Area School District diploma requirement within 7 years. And so, for example, on the far right side, the class of 2020, looking at the end of this current or most recent school year would have been at 94%, meaning that of the students who could graduate within 7 years, 94% of them did. And that was, again, looking at a 1% incremental increase from what that would have looked like the year before. So essentially, you're seeing 5 years worth of data of percentage of students by graduating class who graduated within 7 years of time. And so that's why it's stopped lit as green on the right side, because that is higher by 1.6 compared to the 92.4%. And then finally, before I pause here for any questions or discussion, indicator 4 is one you've actually seen within R3 policy, within the essential life skills policy. But remember, thinking about the mega result as that overarching policy, the why behind our work. We indicated as a district that we want to ensure that our students are graduating the Appleton Area School District, demonstrating the ability to lead, care, and contribute. And so this is information that Kristen Comerford and I shared with you previously in the R3 policy, but it's specific to just seniors. In the other policy, we report out on more than one grade level. But here you can see baseline data, knowing that 22-23 school year was the first year of implementing that survey. You can see the percentage of responses by seniors indicating that they felt prepared to lead, 56.6%, care, 71.8%, and contribute to their communities at 65.3%. So as we later on this year go through the process of reviewing our results policies, if that indicator stays the same, we'll have another column then to look at within the next year to see how we did compared to the baseline year. And that concludes the overview of the R1 mega result policy that you'll be voting on later this evening. And so certainly welcome any questions or comments you may have.
Steve, just a question. Call your attention to page 10. Talk about students that have completed, graduated by the end of the 7 years, age 21. I know for some students with disabilities, their disabilities are such that they cannot complete the academic requirements. And rather than a diploma, they're given the certificate of completion. For those students, are they in the 94% or are they in the 6% that we're considering did not get their AASD diploma?
Yeah, I believe the way it's calculated is they would not be part of the 94% if they had an alternative certificate. This would include the actual graduation.
So of that 6%, do you know what percentage of that is students that are getting certificates of completion? Just because me as a board member, there's a world of difference between getting your certificate of completion, which is success for that student, as opposed to a student that started as kindergartner, went to age 21 and just never got a diploma. Is there any way for you to tell that?
Yeah, I don't know offhand based on how the data is pulled from WiseDash. I don't believe that granular depth of information is available through that portal, but that's not to say internally. So certainly I could connect with our special education department to see what those records look like and report back.
If it's not too much work, so maybe I'm only. There's a world of difference of that 6%, depending on what the composition of that is, at least for me. Thank you.
Related to that, I was wondering, students who maybe acquired a GED or an alternative, are they included in the 94%, or would that also be another exclusion?
Knowing this is specific to students with disabilities, I'd want to double check before I say with certainty whether or not the GED is included or not. I believe it would not be, only because these are numbers generated by the district for district diploma versus GED, which would be separate from regular Appleton Area School District diploma. So I'll double check, but I'm going to err on the side of caution and say that it's likely not part of that 94%.
I just want to be clear. So the 94%, that would be all students from the class of 2020 who may have completed after their cohort.
Correct.
Okay, not just students with special education needs.
Right. Good
Okay.
question of clarity.
Okay.
So this doesn't mean 94% of students with disabilities. It means 94% of the overall population.
Right.
Mhm.
And, okay, so, and not to, we'll have more discussion about some of these indicators at another point.
Right.
So.
Yep.
Thank you.
So I have a couple questions. So the first one is when you were giving the introduction and we were looking at the overall results, all the different results that are kind of roll up into this one. You mentioned that we started looking at the, obviously I wasn't here, but that you started looking at the first results policy you were looking at in the fall.
Right.
And the year was not done then yet, right?
Correct. So another informational item that I think will really help our discussion when we look at the results policies overall and talk about what kind of revisions we like to see for the upcoming cycle is, and this kind of connects to, I think, a recent conversation we had, is that because in some cases the data is lagging, and also because of just when the information is even accessible by the Department of Public Instruction, this is the final policy from the previous year. And so in a matter of a few months in November, I'll be sharing with you a detailed report of all of our ELA results from the 22-23 school year, followed by, the different content areas where you saw the list of 9 or 10.
So it kind of seems to me like this is a mix of last year's results and the year before's results, depending on which result we're looking at.
Right.
Okay.
And where things can certainly get tricky is when we look at attendance data, because that's oftentimes lagging data as well. But
Okay.
By and large, most of the academic data is from the previous school year, from
Okay.
one school year before. And again, that's just because other than iReady and TS Goals, Forward, now pre-ACT, ACT, those don't become available until right before the next school year.
Okay.
But if we stick with the same indicators, in time, we will see the trends. I mean, it's not going, even though some of the data could be lagging, it'll always be lagging, and we will be able to then, it's still useful.
And for those
In
of
that-
you who were part of the ELA and math reports previously, that's something we looked at, is the actual trend data by both graduating class as well as program level by looking at each grade level as well. So yes, you approximately about 5 years of data at a time. Mhm.
And then the main metric for this kind of, for the first two indicators is this reasonable progress, right? Is that something that's defined in those individual policies, or how are we quantifying that? Or is that more of a qualitative measure? What does reasonable progress mean?
Yeah, so when we look at each of the different, just looking at the indicators here to see if it was smaller, of course, in this one, each of our policies by indicator, we would indicate kind of like what you saw in this last indicator. Did we meet the goal or did we not meet the goal? So there's certainly a spectrum of whether or not we're achieving the results overall. We holistically would look at the indicators. And so hypothetically, let's say we had 10 indicators, and if we were making reasonable progress in the vast majority of those indicators, so yeah, we're making reasonable progress, but we do have some exceptions, right? So that's why we have multiple layers of making reasonable progress. It means pretty much all the indicators are being achieved. Most are being achieved, but there's some exceptions, or we're not making reasonable progress. So certainly that's going to be, I would imagine, part of our discussion when we look at our results policies, knowing these are different than the OE policies. If there is a different way you as a board would like to quantify that measure, that's certainly something we can talk through together.
Another one I had was in indicator 3, you mentioned that there was a difference between uncertified results versus certified results. I just wanted to clarify the baseline numbers for 21, those are certified, right?
Those are
Okay.
correct. So what I mean by uncertified is currently when I log in as an administrator into Wise Dash, as all district administrators, you can see data for your own district, but it doesn't become certified until later when reports are publicly made available. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question that is to check my understanding, a high level question to check my understanding about this process. And, for anyone else who might need that, but, we come back to these different, since I joined the board in April, we reviewed career and technical education results policies, financial literacy results policy, and the essential life skills results policies. And we're in the baseline year, so we're kind of doing with these, with all of our coherence governance policies and our results policies, we are kind of doing two things right now. We are continuing to track the indicators that are currently in the policies, and we are reviewing the policies at the same time. So it's confusing to me sometimes, but like we're trying to see how well these policies work by tracking them and also making sure we're pausing periodically to review them and make sure they work since they're so new. Is that an accurate description of what we're doing here?
It is. Kayla, if you wouldn't mind putting the visual back up that I'd shared, because you're absolutely right, Nick, as far as this being the first year for our district of actually monitoring all of our different coherent governance policies, that's why we've been having many of our in-depth conversations as far as looking at, for example, the first half or so of our OE policies. We had a whole year to go through those policies, and then we took some time earlier this summer to start looking at, where would we like to see some changes within the OEs? And as I mentioned before, we still need to finish a few of those in conversation with you as a board. If you wouldn't mind clicking slideshow on this one, Kayla, just so we can see it a little bit larger. Thank you. As you mentioned, when we think about the entire last school year, right? So a little over a year ago, I stood before the board at the time and I shared out R211. And so that started with the English language arts policy. And that was sharing with you at the time as a board, 2021, 2022 data, right? Because that information was now available from the previous year. And that holds true essentially for most of the policies that we see here. I would say minimally through R214, because those first four policies have a lot of state level data in them. And so as we then move further to the right, some of those policies aren't as heavy on, let's say, state level data, but it might be classroom generated data. Either way, that's still from that previous school year. So as Kay mentioned before, all of these are reflecting on the year before every single policy. They're looking at the different content areas, and based on the goals that we collectively established together, what was the progress that we made towards those goals? So each of these policies, as written, will always be presented about a year after, or at least right after the conclusion of the school year, because we just don't have the data available until then. Does that help to answer your question? Okay. And yeah, the second part, as far as, why are we talking through each of them? We'll eventually probably have fewer conversations about what to change. But again, just because we're going through the first year of doing this now as a monitoring session, that's why we've been asking ourselves, do we really want 26 indicators in OE11 as an example? And I think the answer is no.
Okay, if there aren't any other questions, just as a reminder, we do have this later on in the agenda under board business to approve this policy. And again, just as a reminder, all of this we've already talked through when we've gone through other policies. So it's not the first time that we're hearing about it. So, all right. Great. Thank you, Steve. Then also now we would have an update from Personnel Services, Julie King.
All right, good evening. Personnel Services has 3 items for the board's consideration, 7A through C, which consists of 11 new professional educator hires, 56 professional educator contract changes. That seems like a large number, and it is at this time of the year. So we do have a lot of super postings, which are additional classes that our teachers take on at this time. And you'll also see a blip in December, January, when we have some second semester super postings as well. So those are voluntary assignments, but there's 56 professional educator contract changes. And then we do have 4 educator resignations. So are there any questions on any of these items?
Julie, I'm curious as to whether we have any sort of an exit interview process for individuals who signed a contract and then decided to leave.
Not a formal process, but we definitely have trends. So the trends that we see right now, because we have conversation with those individuals, are they might be looking for positions up to even when school starts. And if there's something in a hometown, something of that nature, it's just very fluid. So it's very different than 10 years ago when somebody signed a contract and stayed at that district. There's more mobility there.
Thank you.
Since you mentioned it, I'm curious to know more about the volume of the contract changes. Is that indicative of trouble filling positions, or kind of what do you feel is kind of driving that?
Some of them are positions. So as an example, there may be a 1.0 position, and if there's enough teachers to cover it, it's offered as an additional class. The other piece is it might be a school has an additional class, a 0.2 in a certain area, and instead of hiring another individual, offering it internally first.
So is it your feeling that there's any systemic reason currently that is driving that, or is that just kind of the normal ebb and flow?
It's the normal ebb and flow for the timing. I would say probably the last 3 or 4 years, there's been some more super postings or overloads than in previous years. Mhm.
So Julie, classes begin next week. So I want to bring this down to a summary. How are we sitting staffing wise for the start of the school year? And are there any areas of specific concern as we get ready for the year?
Yes, so as far as educators, we have 17 positions for the upcoming year. All of the classroom positions have the long-term subs secured, so we have coverage for that. Different plans such as looking at WIP interns for semester, as we have some retirees coming back to some of those positions. But all the classroom teachers are filled with substitutes or alternative plans. Mhm. We do need paraprofessionals yet, so if there's anybody out there listening, we'll always put that plug in of support staff. Mhm.
Over the last few years, you've had an emphasis on attracting professionals with more diversity. How is that? How is our progress in that area?
I will have the summary report in the board report in about a week and a half.
Thank you. I look forward to
You're
that.
welcome. Other questions? All right.
Thank you. All right, so we will then move on. Let's see, next up would be the board's consent agenda. It's 3 sets of meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay, great. Roll call, please, Kayla. Aye.
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 Okay, the next would be the superintendent's consent agenda.
The superintendent's consent agenda includes 3 items for your consideration, all of which were reported on by Julie King during her personnel services update. And I recommend approval of these items 7A through C.
I'll move approval of items 7A through C.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Aye.
Aye.
James Bacon.
Thank you. Aye.
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 Okay, no reports tonight, so we'll move to board business. The first item being the monitor report that Steve Harrison just presented, R1 mega results. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve the monitoring report, R1 mega results.
Second on that? Any additional questions or clarification needed? Okay, see none. Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 James Bacon,
Aye.
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 Okay, then our next item would be the 2023-24 professional educator compensation increase. I'm going to ask Julie to present that to us, please.
And Julie, excuse me, before you present, due to potential conflict of interest, I will be abstaining from the vote and discussion, and I will be moving to the public gallery.
All right, thanks, Nick.
All right, so this item, as Mr. Otis had reported, is there was quite a bit of discussion, understanding, and consideration to bring forward this tentative agreement. So this item is for the educator base wage settlement and compensation increase. The recommendation includes both the base wage increase, which is 5.31%, and level movement for a total of 6.4% over last year's total compensation. As noted, the increase would be just shy of $4.9 million for the 6.47%. The increase would be distributed as noted to all active and eligible educators, and that would be in the form of level movement on the compensation framework, a base wage increase to the compensation framework, which would include $2,300 per level, and an adjustment to the starting and the top of the salary, and master's degree movement for eligible staff. Any further questions on the recommendation?
I'll move approval of the 2023-2020 professional educator compensation increase.
Second.
Second.
Any additional discussion or clarification, anything? Okay, seeing none, then roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. James Bacon,
Aye.
Oops, all right, that takes us to the end of our business tonight. Our future meeting, next meeting, there will have a work session and a meeting on September 11th. And back to school kickoff is this Wednesday. So we're all looking forward to that. And we know that our educators and our staff are ready in the buildings, getting ready for those smiling faces to walk through the door. Hope no one has really looked at the forecast for next Tuesday, first day of school, but it might be brutal. So anyways, okay, that's enough. Good night and thank you. And we'll see you again. Okay, we would need a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
All right. Can we have a motion and a second? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, there we go. Good night, everyone. Thank you.